All right, Caleb, help me out. Tell me, what what is some good advice on securing the AI supply chain?
Signing your models and weights after you change them through your snapshots. Good advice.
Okay. Now, Niv, do the opposite for me. Give me some bad advice on securing your AI supply chain.
For sure. The best advice in security as always.
No,
Block
not the
your
best.
yeah,
I want bad advice.
I'm
Go.
kidding, I'm kidding. Blocking your data scientist from working with open source models like Hugging Face, ungoverned environments like notebooks, Databricks, etc.
Ah, now, Caleb, one up that. Give me some worse advice.
What is security? Why, like, you just shouldn't have it. I think that everything, information should be free, and AI and LLM should be free, unbounded, no restrictions. That's the best advice. It just gets in the
I
way.
I think it's like you just dropped the atom bomb on this game. Like, just don't do anything.
Just don't do anything. It just gets in the way of things. Like
Exactly.
it inhibits productivity. It makes things painful. It doesn't make any sense to do.
I think Caleb just won. Here we go. Let's start.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Welcome, everybody, to our discussion today is hacking the AI supply chain, an hour of critical thinking about what's new and familiar about securing the foundations of your AI applications. Our two guests, you just saw them. We have Caleb Sima, who's the builder over at White Rabbit, and Niv Braun, who's the co-founder and CEO of Noma Security. Guess what? Our wonderful sponsor is Noma Security. Thank you so much, Noma, for making this episode of Super Cyber Friday possible. All right, 7 different ways to participate. Let me just point out our bad idea and our 10% better. Our bad idea is how not to secure the AI supply chain. And we're going to get into the specifics of what we mean by the AI supply chain in my very first question, so hang tight. But our tips is how to improve the AI supply chain. So label that as 10% or label it as bad idea, whatever you're talking about. If you would like to come on camera, just type bring me on, and we will do our best to bring you on camera to ask a question or make a comment. Go ahead and ask a question for our guest. If you look at the icons on your right, the second one down is a speech bubble with a question mark in it. Go ahead, enter a question, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. We do the Super Cyber Meetup at the end of the show. I'll explain that in a second, and vote for your favorite question as well. All right, our schedule today is good advice, bad advice, worst advice. You saw that. Bad ideas and 10%. We will pay public interest. We will play Department of Yes. Then last questions and answer. And then finally our meetup. And what that means is at the end of the show, the link at the bottom will change. And I'll tell you what it is now. But many of us will go over to Discord and we'll have face-to-face conversation about more about this or about anything else you would like to discuss your week in cyber as well. All right. I do also want to mention that next week is so this is our penultimate show. Our ultimate show, our last show of 2024 will be next week. So please join us. Hacking Technical Debt, an hour of critical thinking about strategically modernizing your infrastructure. The link at the bottom of the screen will allow you to register. And as I always say, you click on it, you open it, you register. You will not be taken out of this chat. All right. Enough of that nonsense. Let's get to our topic at hand, which is the AI supply chain. All right. Niv, what do we talk about when we're talking about AI security and the AI supply chain so we're all on the same page?
For sure. So I think that we like probably like in all the audience that we have here, like we all know very well what is software supply chain. Basically means everything that helps us to build eventually our runtime application.
Correct.
It starts from the code that we code, it continues with the open source, and also eventually all the building, all the tools that help us to build the application itself. Now, when we look in the data and the AI lifecycle, we see very similar principles, but very different implementations. The code that we code there is done in different environments because the data scientists and the machine learning guys, they work differently and they have different needs. So, for example, they code all their code in all these different notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, Databricks, SageMaker, etc. It continues with different open source. If we have classic dependencies on software development, here we have open source models from Hugging Face, for example, how we make sure that all the models that we use are secured. And in addition, we have, again, also all the building tools. The building tools for the data and the AI lifecycle are different than the classic SDLC. Here we have the MLOps tools, the model registries, the data pipelines, etc. So this is the interface. The same principles of risk, of course, also like happens here when we see also like in the field a lot of attacks around these kinds of infra.
All right. So essentially, we are talking about a development pipeline, but it is different than what we've been facing in the past. Am I summarizing this So
Indeed, basically, yeah.
let's just give me one thing so we can crystallize it for the rest of it. Give me one thing that is different about this that is quite unique in dealing with securing. Niv.
Sure. So let's take open source. I think it's like the most classic one. Classic open source dependencies. We all understand already like the risk that we have there. When we look on open source models, the objects themselves are different objects. The heuristics in order to defend, to find and to detect different malicious activities and backdoors and stuff like that around are just like different. So we need to make sure that we have like the proper like abilities to detect this kind of risk. And I'll continue like two more like examples, just like to make sure that like we have like the comprehensive picture. So again, all the code, data scientists basically, because they need direct access to the data, so they work in different environments. They are called Jupyter notebooks basically. They are kind of like a combination of SCM and IDE. Specifically tailored for the data scientist. And most times what we see is that because of their unique workflow, all this code never goes through the CI/CD. They basically kind of like bypassed it. And then we see a lot of different risk come from like, again, unscanned code, something that we are familiar with. And all the tools, as mentioned, are also like different. So we have, for example, MLOps tools like Databricks, a lot of misconfigurations around these areas, or data pipelines like Airflow. Now, all the configurations of these tools are managed by dedicated data infra team and data platform teams because they are so complex. Unfortunately, they are optimizing all these configurations for the data, for the product. They are not security experts. We don't want them, by the way, to be security experts and to start to spend all their time there. But this is why we see a lot of misconfigurations around all these different types of tools during the building process.
All right, but Barath just dropped the components of an AI-powered supply chain, and it has the smell of this was a GPT request. Am I correct, Barath, that you made a GPT request of, would you tell me what are the components of an AI-powered supply chain? Caleb, would you taking a look at the data infrastructure, AI and machine learning models, automation, robotics, communication networks? Did ChatGPT do a good job? And I was right. Yes, he said. How did ChatGPT do on that?
I mean, I would say it's pretty high level, and I'd say there's lots of gaps.
Yeah, it seems pretty high level.
Yeah, like I wouldn't call it, like if someone said this is the components of an AI-powered supply chain and put it on a blog, I think they would get ripped apart. So
yeah, so we're ripping apart ChatGPT. It's all right. Yeah. Hey, so what would you add to what Niv said? Niv gave a really nice background of what we're talking about the supply chain. For those of you who don't know in the audience, that Caleb has done sort of a very extensive research in AI. I've been working that. And correct me if I'm wrong, are you an advisor for Noma, Caleb, or what's your relationship?
I'm an investor.
Investor,
for Noma,
okay.
So,
all right,
yeah.
cool.
I guess, I'm a little bit on the side of making sure Noma wins, right?
All right, well, let's hope. All right.
Humble and thrilled.
All right, so he's definitely got a stake in the game here. And by the way, if you can tilt your camera over Caleb's left shoulder, he does have a working payphone. See, there it is. That
there's my working. My
how did you actually acquire that payphone, Caleb?
Actually, it was eBay specifically, but it took me months of combing and waiting to get that payphone. Because I wanted a very specific payphone, which is a 1996 Bell South Olympics payphone.
Why
from
that
Atlanta.
one specifically?
Yeah, because that is the exact payphone at which I first got into hacking. I did a red box. I built a red box from Radio Shack, went to the payphone, which was this exact type of payphone, and tested the red box. And that was when I got hooked and got into security.
Ah, well, there you go. Very good story. All right. So, what has been your experience with the AI supply chain in general?
Well, I think that, we are at very early stages. So when you talk about AI supply chain, I think, actually your first question right up front is a really good one. What the fuck is it? I'm sorry.
It's all
Excuse
right.
my language.
This show, by the way, unlike our podcast, this show you can swear. So go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. So what is it? I think is a very key
I
question.
thought you said, "What the fuck is it?" Okay.
Yeah. Well, what the fuck is it? Is a very key question for this. Yeah, because I think when you think about supply chain, most people today are thinking about source code, right? And so they are used to AppSec and code and libraries and dependencies. And to some extent, does that carry over? Is it more than or the same? So here's how I would define the supply chain of AI. I would define at the lowest level the supply chain being libraries, being dependencies. Just like any other enterprise software, we depend on those dependencies and those codes. So that carries over as a foundational layer. But I think one abstraction above that is going to be the systems, the infrastructure, and the software that you're using to do this. And why is that so important? Because when you look at all of the people that are doing this themselves, that these are built off of open source frameworks, collaboration software, and then you also have open source models, weights, all of these things that you get from Hugging Face that are going in and out. And so then you have a whole supply chain around models, a whole supply chain around the software that runs on top of it. And then finally, I think on top of that is the users of that and what they do. So I would say the supply chain really, when I think about AI, I go to the very specific part that is AI only. I think models, right? So I think about in the models themselves, how do I understand the history of those models, the reputation of those models, the changes to those models, what dependencies do those models rely on? And that's when I think about very AI specific. Everything else I think is about enterprise software, infrastructure, and code. So, and that's the supply chain at which we're used to today.
So we're really focusing on models, and that's an interesting take. And what I'd be interested is there's what you know from today, the model, and the fact that it's always changing, how your knowledge of that model changes with it, or how your ability to manage it, watch it, track it changes over time. Niv, what can we do with that?
For sure. So I think that basically, like when we talk about supply chain of specific models, so we need to understand that we have also several different types of models. We might have like first, like as Caleb mentioned, like the Hugging Face models, like the classic like open source ones that we use. Sometimes we see a lot of times, specifically if we speak about LLM, and of course, like we know that the AI supply chain is much wider than LLM only. But specifically, if we focus on LLM, so also all the different like third-party models from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, etc., that we embed as part of our application. This is also like part of eventually of the supply chain that we have, and of course, eventually you have also like the ones that you built in-house. So first, I think that the most important thing that the organization today are still struggling with is to inventory everything. Most organizations are not even aware of what models they have in their environment, either like deployed into production, but even before that, like all the experiments that they have. Now, the experiments, in this case, they are very important because, as we said, like the data science team, most times they work already on the development side with the data itself. So even if their like development environments are compromised, you already have some major risk because the sensitivity a lot of time is production, or the IP that might be stolen, the model itself is also like very sensitive. So the first thing is truly to inventorize like everything that you have, start from the building and up to the production itself. Then, of course, if you use different third-party models or open source one, you need to make sure their integrity. You need to make sure that you use them properly. There are no any like malicious activities back there. I can tell you that like we already like found like dozens of different malicious models on Hugging Face. Unfortunately, also running in production of big organizations. By the way, like note side, also licenses. A lot of time we forget about it when we speak about like security, but a lot of like the open source licenses about models are a bit different than classic software packages, and we see also a lot of time legal issues around that. And
sounds like a lot of loose ends that probably people are missing. Yes,
100%. Again, because like one of the reasons is that all the environments and all the infra, as Caleb mentioned, are like totally different. So, for example, everything that happens in your Databricks, where most times like all these models are downloaded and embedded like from, you have no idea. Like you don't have like any basic visibility to what happens there. And I see that the last part, after like getting like all the inventory and like checking all the third-party models like for their integrity and licenses, is also what Caleb mentioned before, which is also like signing like the model. Once you like to like build the model, once you already like trained it, once you know that this is like the version, sign it. Make sure that like there are no any like changes there like during the supply chain. So you'll be able like to let like also by yourself like to know that you can like trust this specific version later on.
All right, we got our first game. Let's do it.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right. It came to my attention that we think it was Caleb was the very first person who ever scored 4 for 4. First of our guests to ever score 4 for 4 on this game. If someone in the audience can tell me there was someone before Caleb, please let me know. But again, very few people have done it. I think Caleb, if he goes 2 for 2, Dustin Sachs believes he needs to be tested for drug use. Or, not 2 for 2. He goes 4 for 4 twice. I mean,
I have to purposely now lose so I don't get tested.
I don't even know if anyone knows how to purposely lose in this game, too. You're going to see. Niv doesn't even know what this game is. He's going to find it.
Yeah, I really like to see what it is about.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to know right now, Niv. Most average monthly search queries. Whoops. How about that? Whoops. There we go. Most average monthly search queries. All right. So there's 3 words here: algorithm, data, and model. Of all the search queries that are on Google in the latest month, the most recent month, which term do you think gets searched the most of those 3? Remember, this is not just cybersecurity people, just anybody. So which of those 3 do you think gets searched most? Niv.
I'll go with B. I'll go with data.
Data?
I'm also going to go with data.
I'm going model.
The audience says model.
The audience says model. Again, I didn't create this. Rich Straffolino created this, so I'm playing along too. I have no idea. The correct answer is? It is model. What's going on? Is
like,
somebody else?
Like the game is over. Like I already like know I have a chance like to get like 4 or 4 already like in the first question.
Yeah, I can't. I failed. Hey,
by the way, is anyone on the team clicking this? Because I'm not touching anything right now. Is anyone on the team? Because why was I just flipping out like that? I have no idea. I did not click anything. All right. I'm going to click now. Not touching nothing. All right.
I'm surprised algorithm is searched the same amount as data. That's surprising.
Yeah, it's like
that is surprising. All right. Well, trust me, this show surprises everybody, or this game does. All right. So Caleb is not going to go for 4 for 4, but I could possibly. Let's see what happens. Acceleration, GPU, or training. I'm going to go with training. I know this one. I feel confident. It's training.
Training is a pretty obvious one.
All right, what do you, Niv? What are you going with?
Well, yeah, like again, like it's not also like in security or even like computing, like just like a general word.
It just could be anything. All right, let's see. Correct answer is? It is GPU.
No way.
What?
I don't. This shocks me. I don't.
Even if you only like to sport training, I would like bet that.
Even physical fitness training, like that seems very unusual. That's crazy.
But I think it's just the search of that one word. It doesn't include like if you did physical fitness training, this wouldn't include in that number. You see what I'm saying? That's why. Yeah. Okay. It would have to be just that one word.
Just that word.
One word.
Oh, so one single search only, nothing else included in that.
Just that one word. Yeah.
Oh, that actually changes a lot. Yeah, that does change the story.
All right. Let's go. So we're not doing so well here. All right. Compliance, ethics, and governance. I'm going to say compliance here. That's what I'm going with. I'm going with G, compliance. What do you guys think?
I'm going with governance.
Like in this game, but I want to take like the opposite of what like my intuition goes. So I'll go with ethics.
All right, we're all picking a different one. Somebody's going to win here. Right. Who's it going to be? It is ethics. Niv takes it. Good job.
Winning, like just like show me how bad I am. Actually, like counter like my intuition.
All right, last one. annotation, bias, and learning. And by the way,
Bias.
who are these people just type in the word learning?
Yeah.
I
I'm
like it
actually
would be
going to.
like, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go with annotation because I don't think people know what annotation is, and they're looking it up to see what annotation is. So I'm going to say annotation.
That's
Yeah,
a strong reasoning right there, actually.
There you go. Are you going with you staying with bias though, Caleb?
I'm going to stay with bias, but I actually think your reasoning behind annotation is a very good argument.
What about Niv? What are you going with?
I want to go to annotation, but I think I'll go to learn just in order like to make the show again.
So somebody
like,
will win. All right.
Bias.
Bias wins. Oh, actually, annotation dead last. All right. Well, that's it. That's it. All right. Good job all the way around. So I think. Hold it. Did you get 2 or just 1, Caleb? I didn't get the count.
I think I just got 1.
I think we all just got 1. I think that's what happened. I think we only got just 1. How did the rest of everyone do? Everyone do any better than that?
Yeah, Melissa was saying
a few 3 for 4s. All right, not bad. Larry Rosen, Andrew Aiken, and Dustin Sachs, and Jaffoon, I think.
Yeah, but Dustin, if I come on the next one, I'm going to do 4 for 4. So
Yeah,
just to play, I'm just playing around with people. So
some people put in. All right, we have a couple of questions. Some people accidentally put their answers in the Q&A, which I will get rid of that as well. All right, Niv, I want you to, though, just briefly explain for our audience what exactly Noma does with respect to the AI supply chain. So it makes sense, like why you're an expert in this area.
For sure. So basically, Noma provides the most holistic, secure data and AI platform in the market, meaning that we cover all the organizations that build with data and AI models as part of the application. We provide them end-to-end visibility and protection, start from the supply chain, checking all the open source model, all the code of the data scientist, all their environments like Databricks, Snowflake, model registries, data pipelines, etc., from different security risk. Continue with the AI security posture management, building their own model inventory of all the different models that they build or invent, and also making sure that they have the right data governance. They're not training any sensitive data on their models, for example, and up to the runtime itself, where we secure the model, protect the model from adversarial attacks like the OSP 10 LLM problems, or also like safety guardrails to make sure that the model doesn't give any financial or advice or a health advice to your customers. So basically, we truly like cover it end to end, start from the supply chain up to the runtime, and start from the also very important, like to mention, classic data engineering and machine learning, and up to the Gen AI as well, because we know that a lot of organizations are still at the beginning of the adoption of Gen AI. But when we look on the classic like data engineering and machine learning, this is something that is already like in mass adoption that only now, because of the great wave, organizations start to focus on and pay a lot of attention to.
Excellent. Well, guess what? Hello, audience. We just opened up a poll right now. I'm going to make it visible right now. Whoops. Making it visible. Hold on. Are we two of us battling this right now? Now it's visible. Maybe it's not. Make it visible. There we go. It's visible. We just made a poll visible. If you would like a nice warm handoff to the fine people over at Noma to learn more about this, how you can deal with your AI supply chain, we're going to talk plenty more about it right here. But please go to the poll right now, respond to the poll, and we will make sure that warm handoff happens. We will do it for you. So all you have to do is click the poll. We'll do everything else for you. All right. Also, let me remind you, if you have not registered for the event we're having next week, please click the link at the bottom of the screen because it will not be up there the entire time. Please click on that. All right. With that being said, let's move on to our questions from our audience. Actually, we got a few good ones. One specifically about Noma. So this is for you, Niv. From Chris Fontaine here. I'll put it up on the screen. From a threat perspective, are you ingesting multiple feeds to the Noma threat detection and response system? And if so, are the feeds customizable? Niv.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, like, because our platform is like very wide, so we basically like integrate to all these different tools natively during the whole data and AI lifecycle, and up, of course, also like to the production application itself. And then we digest automatically and continuously all this information and continuously, of course, like monitoring and detecting all the different posture risk and also detection and response on the runtime.
Okay, very, very good. All right, here, let me, whoops, done answering that. And here is a question. Well, this is your, whoops, oh, I just did done answering. I didn't mean to do that. Let me open that back up. But again, reopening. This one comes from Dustin Sachs. Classic question about any security tool for that matter. How can security professionals implement continuous monitoring and validation of deployed AI systems without impacting performance or scalability? By the way, do you see a problem happening, a significant problem? You're nodding your head, Niv. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this is like in general, I think this is like one of the most important emphasis in any like security tool or procedure that you want to implement like in your organization. It's not only to provide like the great like visibility and security level that we want to achieve, but do it without like causing any like friction and like slowing down the team or the application. And 100% there are ways to do so. You need to make sure that like the product that you use truly fits this exact purpose and put it like in very like a high important priority as part of the tool itself. But 100% there are a lot of different like ways to do it. The first thing is not to abuse the team to work as software developers, but truly like to make sure that like we don't bring the data scientist and the AI to the classic AppSec, but we do exactly like the opposite. We bring the suited security tools to them. And secondly, performance-wise and scalability in the application itself, we need to make sure that, like again, like that the whole purpose of the product is to be native integrated as part of the product without impacting the performance and the scalability in any manner that will change the product and like the business goal of the product itself.
And I'll give some tactical thoughts on it. Continuous monitoring, actually, to your surprise, may actually already be done. You should just go to your engineering team, because most engineering team, especially if they're producing LLMs in production, will have already some way of continuously monitoring the outputs and inputs of that LLM for debugging and troubleshooting purposes. So that is probably already being done. The question for you might be, how do you tap into that? And if it's not done, then don't go to your engineering team and present it as a way to do security, but present it as a way to potentially get sort of both performance debugging capability, and it also helps security in the ability to do that. So that's your continuous monitoring. The second part you also asked about is validation of these models. Validation, I think, is a
and would you address that when you speak? Because Barath, something that's that sort of connect to what you're about to say, whether you agree or disagree with that statement, which I just put up there on the screen. You see the human in the loop. You see?
Okay, but that's a different. I'm addressing the last question. Should I address this question?
Ahead. All right.
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say the validation part can be done without performance, assuming how you define validation. So, like, actually, our first comment was validating the model and ensuring the integrity of the model. That is stuff that is not done in production. That's done but just by checking signing. So that kind of thing has no impacts on performance.
All right. Well, so I was just asking, and so I guess it wasn't exactly connected, but this human in the loop comment that Barath made, much of the data labeling, the whole point was we've taken the human out of it, and it that was what was slowing everything down, and that the AI was allowing us to do, data labeling and organization and categorization, hence the whole category of data security posture management as being very key. But do you think value to what Barath is saying here? Either of you, jump in.
Yeah, I can give some points, but Niv, I'll let you take first crack if you want.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think there's the human in the loop being used for data labeling means that they are either creating their own model and or fine-tuning the model in some form or fashion. So why do you need human in the loop for that? Because you need to be able to, in some sense, even though most people talk about bias as being negative, you need to give some sort of reward factor or bias to the machine learning model to determine what is that you are looking for. So that is the data labeling component. So yes, you still have to do human in the loop to teach the model and fine tune the model on preference, on what is the data, what are you looking for, give it its correct predictions. So if you are fine tuning, then you will do human in the loop. However, what you're saying, I think, is, oh, like, hey, isn't this supposed to go away? Well, no, it's not supposed to go away, in the essence that LLMs are trained without labeling by taking existing internet text and then being able to associate things. But in fine tuning or retraining, you still do human in the loop for training.
Right.
By the way, this does not also mean there is also human in the loop in actions in production too. So especially when it comes to agents, there are humans in the loop today that still have to be there in order to give permission or to verify actions on LLMs.
I'm going to also drop this question from Will to Luba. I like this one here. And Niv, you were addressing this kind of at the beginning, but let's maybe we can just focus on one right here, more of like why someone needs an organization like yours, like because this is what everyone's blowing. And Will asks, what have you seen or believe is a gap in AI security that companies believe should be focused on but have ignored thus far?
Yeah, so I think that like just after like the GPT raise, like the beginning, like the first wave, I think that what we saw like mainly is about like adversarial attacks, like prompt injection, model jailbreak, and stuff like that. What I start like to see like more and more in the recent, let's say, 1 year, is that once the security team understood that, okay, now like the AI needs to get like a real like a main focus in the organization, they start like to put like the spotlight on the data and the AI teams. And then what I see that like they understand now that like they didn't focus until now, and now they're starting like to focus more, is actually all the basic like all the basic risk, all the like low-hanging fruits, like the misconfigurations around all these data bricks and Airflows and Kubeflow, the data pipelines, the MLOps tools, model registries, and also like the code of the data scientist. If Caleb beforehand kind of like divided it to two, to AI specific risk and to general risk, like in the AI, let's say, life cycle, that are not related only to the AI like models themselves. So I think that like the latter is actually something that today is very kind of like overlooked, and we start like to see, because of also like a lot of breaches in the field, of course, we start to see organization starting to pay more and more attention to these areas.
Okay.
I wrote a blog post on myth busting AI security issues, and I basically went through all the AI security incidents that came out in the press that said this was an AI exploit, and 82% of them just turned out to be traditional security misconfiguration problems in AI software. To go back to Niv's point, that is the biggest gap. It's the same problem. It's just misconfigurations and traditional software vulnerabilities, but it's now just showing up in software that is being used to deliver, manage, and build AI.
Okay.
And I'll add to that also like in different like in the AI life cycle. So like it's also like different tools and different components and different environments that are just like blind to the classic like application security.
All right, here, this question from Lewis here. Wonder any global AI assurance standard is actually in use in real world for third-party AI security supply chain management in the industry? I can't imagine anything is yet. And how we ensure the due diligence is conducted by people who do have the right AI assurance tools, assurance framework, and skill sets. Let me ask you, how far along are we on this? I guess it's more my question.
In the frameworks and regulations in general.
Yeah, I mean, are we anywhere on this? Where are we?
I think that like a lot of things that we see like in AI, like it's running like relatively much faster than a lot of things that like we see in the past. So of course, regulations and standards are also like not something that happens in just a sudden in a day. Of course, like it's a bit longer process. But also there we see like the progress done on these frameworks is much faster than I saw in a lot of different regulations in the past. And it starts from the AI EU Act and also to like already like official certifications of ISO, like ISO 42001 about the AI system and 5338 about the AI lifecycle. So we do start like to see through like a lot of focus and pretty fast there also like in this area. And I can tell you that like from my experience, like in all the work that we have like in our customers, a lot of organizations even like start to like to pursue these standards, like to get like the ISO 42001 certification, for example, because they see it as a great business enablement, because a lot of organizations and a lot of their customers started to ask them, how do I make sure that like all my data that I'm sharing with you is not trained on your models? How do I make sure that all your models are secured and are not going like to leak my data? It's like TPRM like questions, but now they get like the ISO 42001 certification. They see that like it really like drives business for them with their customers.
I'm going to throw up this question here. I'm going to go to you, Caleb, on this. And I'm also going to add, because I remember we chatted a while ago, because there's this huge fear that you're going to put in some private information, and then someone's going to be able to extract it out. And Caleb, you had pointed out, like, yeah, that can happen, but it's really, really difficult to do that sort of scenario that plays out in everybody's head. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Larry's question here. What is the first thing most organizations should do when trying to address AI? Because I get the sense, correct me if I'm wrong, Caleb, that people's fear is not, their eye isn't really on the ball when it comes to AI. Am I right on that?
I do think that there's a lot of unknown, and so people are trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. So, and in reality, I actually think it's a little bit more simple, and people overcomplicate things. There is one major real threat today that I think should be the biggest concern and worry for enterprises, and that is prompt injection. That is the only real threat that today is impactful in most organizations deploying AI.
And by the way,
That
explain for everybody, what is prompt injection?
Prompt injection is basically social engineering your AI. So it is the equivalent, if you know web security, it is the equivalent of cross-site scripting or SQL injection. It is exactly the same methodology, exact same problem, but applied in a new tech stack called LLMs. That is your biggest threat. So therefore, I take that as the first angle I would approach, which is, okay, prompt injection is very, very doable, extraordinarily easily done. And what can I do to protect against it, or do I need to protect against it? That's probably the first thing. So then I would say, well, what am I using an LLM for? If I'm just using an LLM to do things like customer support, FAQ reporting, or documentation answering for customers on my website, prompt injection is not your biggest threat, right? Like that, it's just you don't have sensitive information. You don't have sensitive information. Like, it's not going to be a thing that's really going to bother you much. So like, I would say, what am I doing with my LLM? Is it accessing sensitive data? Is it not? Is it taking actions? Is it taking privileged actions? Is it being used for my employees versus my customers? Is it only being used by machines? It's a machine to machine type of problem. So look at your threat model, look at what you need to worry about. Prompt injection is your number one concern. Figure out whether that is an applicable and or damaging thing to you. And that is the most simplistic thing you can do. From there, I would then go into the standard things that are not AI specific. What is your build pipeline? What is your LLM supply chain? What is your misconfigurations? All of these are standard controls that you need to figure out, from your infrastructure to your code to your deployment model. Those, make sure you do best practices, and that is not AI specific. Those are, I think, the top two. Number one, hey, if you're going to go do something in AI, these are the top things you need to go do. And then if you've done all that, then you get into more nitty gritty data poisoning, blah, 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 blah types of things.
All right. We got some bad, we have the Department of Yes coming up.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right, here we go. We have a bunch of horrible ideas, suggestions that come from our audience. But the way this game works, Dave, I'm going to make Caleb answer first, so you get a good swing at this. You have to explain why you want to actually do this. And this one comes from Will Taluba. And I like this one. It is authorize AI to negotiate with ransomware crews to make payments to decrypt your data and save your company. Caleb, take a deep breath. Tell me why you want to do this.
Again, David, can you go repeat?
Okay. Authorize AI to negotiate with ransomware crews to make payments to decrypt your data and save your company.
Okay. As we know, most people have no idea what it is to be able to negotiate with ransomware people and to do this effectively. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different subtle techniques that need to occur in order to negotiate and work with ransomware to be able to determine, one, how much they've hacked you and determine the type of data, and two, what level, and elongate this thing in order for you to recover and feel what you've done and be able to reduce the amount at which you have to pay. These are very complex negotiation tactics that only specialized people today can do. And in order to do that, they're very, very expensive. And so you as a CISO who don't have a lot of experience, don't have the capability to do this, need specialized models like AI to go and do this for you, because it can absolutely do a way better job than you could ever do.
All right. Niv, there's no way you're going to beat that one. That's dead.
Do I need to? Like, I just start to search for the web for like the negotiation, like for Noma.
Niv, I'm not even going to let you answer that one because
I can try. I can do like we did like at the beginning.
I'm going to make you answer this next one. I'm going to make you answer this next one because that was a great job, Caleb. You did awesome on that. All right. I'm going to make you answer this one. This comes from Alfred Negron, who I just saw 2 days ago. Or was it, yes, 2 days ago? 2 days ago. Develop an API that connects to your competitor's AI platform. So you're developing an API that connects to your competitor's AI platform. Advertise to your customers that your AI is the most advanced AI available. Why do you want to do this?
I think that they need like to bring like up bad ideas, no?
You think this is a good idea?
Just kidding. It kind of like speaks for itself. Eventually, like like if you want like to do like the market competitive, and like your competitor tell you like who is like the right like decision like in the market, I think it's get like kind of like a great advantage.
I don't know. Caleb, help him out here.
I actually don't quite understand the idea. I'm trying. Like, what is it? Right. Your AI agent.
All right, let me pick. My producer Rich didn't like this well, but everyone seemed to respond to this. All right, I got a better one for you. This comes from Justin Weller. Require all AI supply chain partners to share their source code on a public GitHub repo just for transparency. Niv, why do you want to do this?
I think this is actually like exactly how more eyes, more security. If a lot of people like
classic theory on open source.
Yeah,
all right, I give you that.
Like everything all together.
Yes. All right. We can go with that. Caleb, what would you add to that?
I know I'm on board. I think Niv is spot on with this. This is clearly classic open source. We should do this. This is a good idea. It's about transparency. It's about trust and safety and being able to ensure that we've got all the eyes that we can to make our systems more secure. It's a no-brainer.
It's a classic theory on open source. Let's go.
Yeah. Niv's spot on.
And temporary David Spark face tattoos. Nobody needs David Spark face tattoos. Dustin Sachs. All right, let's go back to our discussion at hand. Do we have questions that come in? Let me see. Okay, here's a question from Chris Fontaine again. So this is for you, Niv, because it's about Noma. This is to be or not to be. It is like two questions. How does Noma deal with the unpredictable nature of AI vulnerabilities while creating a secure framework that's scalable and proactive? And how do you think this will impact the way people trust AI in the supply chain of the future? Ooh, good question, the double A. So what's your take on that?
Cool. So let's start like one by one. So first, you have like the unpredicted kind of like vulnerabilities, and you can like define it to two, because there are a lot of stuff that are like, if I'll continue like with Caleb division before and of AI specific and non-AI specific. So most of like the non-AI specific are actually kind of like deterministic misconfigurations, and kind of like also like a deterministic issue that we can find like in open source models and stuff like that. And there, of course, like it's very predictable. For the non-predicted side, which is more, let's say, like the vulnerabilities by design of the model themselves. It can be a prompt injection. It can be also like the rest, like model denial of service, jailbreak, and stuff like that. So basically, what we do is we have two options, like two different like elements that we know how to use and implement in our product and the detectors. First one is, if we said more eyes, more security. So of course, we're not saying that we're like the only smart people around the world, and we have like several groups that what they do is to collect and to find all these different new kind of like already known types of techniques to jailbreak and to inject like to different models, and we implement everything as part of our detectors. And in addition to that, we have also like group of security research that this is their expertise. This is what they do. They're like AI security research. What they do is to come up also like all the time with new kind of like techniques, and we embed also this kind of like, let's call it 0 days also as part of our detectors.
All right, good answers. All right, back to, I don't think we have. Oh, let me remind people, because this poll won't be up forever. Please go back to our poll if you would like a nice warm handoff to the fine people over at Noma Security. You heard from Niv all the kind of cool things that they could do. Go please click on that, and we will make a warm handoff to you. And also, if you have not clicked the link at the bottom of the screen to register for our Hacking Technical Depth Super Cyber Friday, our last one of the year, this is going to be a fun discussion. Please click on that and register for it. We would love to have you. And also, let me remind you, that link is going to change the last 5 minutes of the show to our discussion or our meetup that we do on Discord. If you're not on Discord, get on Discord in the next few minutes. And we get a face-to-face meetup, so we get to see all of you. You get to see all of us, and we chat more about this or anything else you would like to talk about that has to do with cyber security as well. All right. I don't have any more questions from our audience, so I'm going to go to my own questions. I'm going to start with you, Caleb. When you were doing all this research, what struck you as most problematic? Because, by the way, there's a lot of unknown. You mentioned that, but to you personally, what appeared so problematic?
Actually, I think my initial instinct was that the thing that was most surprising is the lack of problematic, if that makes sense.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
When you go through, and I started learning about LLMs, and there was a lot of fear, and I was walking into this with like, okay, security research sort of mindset, right? Mm-hmm. And so you start digging and you start looking and you start learning, what is this going to be? How's it going to work? And actually, when you start really looking into this thing, at least at the surface level, there's not a lot of security impactful things. It's not like I walked away with, there are 30 things that are huge security problems. In fact, I think that there's a lot of reach of trying to find and apply, really hard security problems that are LLM model specific. Everything kind of resulted in more of generic security issues that we just know and live with every day. And so things like data poisoning, prompt injection, these kinds of things are very specific. But when you get out of that, what else is there? And so I think maybe my biggest surprise was, it's not like you walked away with, oh shit, that's going to be a big hole. Oh shit, that's going to be a big problem. Like none of that really came away in my walk away.
So it's interesting you say that, Caleb, because this actually came up with Mike Johnson, one of my co-hosts, who, when we talk about AI security, goes, it's just another new technology I need to secure. And the approach was no different than anything else. And that's kind of like what I'm hearing from you with that. There wasn't anything that jumped out too drastically from AI.
And here's the thing: is it's early, so we're going to see. The other thing
Right.
is like I also think, where is AI being used today? Like AI being used, it's not being used in very critical infrastructure or decision or high impactful decision places, right? When AI starts, I think, being more and more higher confidence, and we start evolving and maturing in that, and where AI starts taking real actions or being in places that are super impactful, I think the risk goes up and the kinds of issues and attacks are going to change and get created as that risk goes up. So I think in the future, we haven't seen the real problems yet. But as we start going down that path, we're going to see those. And so, I think they're not necessarily obvious problems, or they are obvious problems in the sense that they are existing problems. Like, let me give you a good example. Agents. Everyone talks about agents. Well, what are agents? Well, agents are just basically automation. That's what it is. It's just not done in code. It's done through a model. And so, but what is the big problem? It's permissions. So everyone is talking about permissions around agents and what they can do and what they can't do. And they're throwing their hands up saying, this is a new problem. Oh my God, how do I deal with permissions on agents? And then my question is always, well, what's the difference between a permission on a person, permission on a script of code versus permission on a model? And I think people are really reaching for creating new security issues and claiming it new and labeling it new because it's exciting versus just saying this is just a same problem on a new tech stack.
All right. I am going to I have to wrap up this show, but I'm going to come back and ask you guys some final questions. So let me just hit some final things before we go, because we are 9 minutes out. Huge thanks to Niv's company, that'd be Noma. Again, if you've not clicked the poll, please go click the poll now, and we will make that handoff to Noma happen. Guess what's happening? In, what time is it now? A little over 2 hours from now. Here, wait, no, 11:30? An hour and a half from now, an hour and 40 minutes from now. Geez, I'm going to get my math on time ready one of these days. We're going to be doing our cybersecurity headlines week in review show. We got Ed Fry from Luminary Cloud who will be joining us, and this is just the latest news stories of the week, and we bring that expert to provide some context, what it all means. So please join us for that. That happens over on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So you can get to it from CISOseries.com or just go youtube.com/CISOseries. You'll find it that way. Stick around for a meetup. Look at that. Click the link at the bottom. Join our post-event meetup on Discord. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, this is what it kind of looks like, but the lower left-hand corner, that's where your microphone and your camera options are, if you haven't done that in Discord before. And why is this not moving? Move. Would you like to sponsor a Super Cyber Friday? This is our next available one will not be till January 31st. So if you would like to get in there, please do that. And our next event, I mentioned before, is going to be next Friday. If you didn't get a chance to click that link, don't worry. Just go to the front page of CISOseries.com, and the link will be there right at the top. Or just go to our events page, and you can see it there as well. But we're going to want you to join our meetup, which is going to be happening in just a few minutes. All right. With that being said, let's get to our final question, which is, I will start with you, Niv. Is there anything I did not ask you about that we should have been talking about?
Interesting. Very interesting. I think that we didn't speak about data enough. I think that when you speak about sure, I'll do it very quickly, but I think that basically data and AI are not really separated topics. They're separate in some level, but they're very connected to each other. When you speak about the supply chain of for example, bringing open source models, you need also to speak about the data sources that you also bring inside the organization. When we speak about the supply chain in the matter of data science and building models, a lot of it starts from the data pipelines area, the data engineering area, where all these different data and models are being trained and tasked. And again, if we speak about misconfigurations, and also in all these areas, if we spoke about runtime issues, and I fully agree with the last comment of Caleb, I think that the runtime and the adversarial attacks issues, we don't see them yet as very high priority in the field, because the business adoption there and the business use cases found in the field are not yet like very wide. But once like we started like to see, once we'll start like to see it in the future, and we'll start to see more like also like agents with like access to RAG architecture and stuff like that, then I think also that data will become like much bigger issue. So I think this is maybe something that we didn't touch on a lot during this conversation, and should be very related for security persons when they start like to speak about the supply chain of the data and AI teams.
Very, very good point. Caleb, what do you think? What didn't we talk about that we should have? Outside of data, which definitely a good point. I mean, we did touch upon it, but not to the depth that you were discussing. Caleb?
You know, I'm a little bit more like, I feel like when you think about AI supply chain, I really think it's more about maybe going deeper versus, depth versus breadth, and really focusing on how do I, when I think about models, just taking that as a topic. What are the models in my enterprise? What am I running? Am I hosting them locally? Am I downloading them from Hugging Face? Am I doing them remotely through the standard foundational model providers? What is my interface with my models? How am I configuring these models? Who's managing and has access to these models? Like, I feel just kind of going down really deep in just the models itself, I think is probably a great, that is an hour alone of like a really good session of, I think if you're a CISO in an enterprise or a security person in an enterprise, starting with just the questions around models and what your company's doing with them and around them is a great in-depth area I'd love to probably do more of.
Ah, excellent. Well, we can bring this show to a close right now. If you have not clicked the poll right then, please do it right now, because we're going to wrap this sucker up in just 1 minute. I want to thank our guests. That would be Niv Braun and Caleb Sima for making this entire event happen, and also the chat room. I always say, if you guys don't know this already, I always say the chat room is half the show. We're only one half of it. Draft of the David Sparks shirt is in Discord, so join us there. Oh, I am interested in seeing this. This is, I'm always amazed by, is that the chat room comes up with these ideas of some kind of cryptocurrency with my face on it called a Spark coin, or something about a hamsters as a service. And they've built up a whole series of programs, and now it's my face as a tattoo, which has come up as in the past, which I strongly don't recommend anyone ever do, even as a joke, because nobody likes a permanent joke on their body, for that matter. But I have seen that. A friend of mine got Jerry Lewis's face tattooed on his arm. And he actually had Jerry Lewis sign it at an event, and then he got the signature tattooed on his arm over his face. That is true. It was actually written up in the New Yorker magazine, too, on top of it. All right. Thank you, everybody. We greatly appreciate it. Hey, come on. Why don't you join us for the chat over on Discord? Click the link at the bottom of the screen. Thank you to our producers, Andrew, Aaron, and Rich, for making this entire show happen. Remember, next Friday is our last one of the year, and we won't have another one until January 24th. So please come to our next one as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Niv. Thank you, Caleb. Click the link at the bottom of the screen.